I have been so broke, I didn't have bus fare in my pocket. I've had nothing. I'm actually really proud of my roots, having come from Moulsecoomb, but it was brutal. It was really tough. I've had struggles with alcohol and depression, and only you can change it. The only way out of it is you. People talk about who your heroes are. My dad is my hero. Let's turn education into something where you see the potential in the kid, not just do they fit. If you can light a spark of hope or joy or understanding in another human being, that surely is the definition of success. Follow your dream and your dreams will follow. When I was about to put together the band with Patrick is the time when my brother took his own life. So when he shared with me a sheet of lyrics called Falling, I should have seen the signs, and I didn't, and it breaks my heart to this day. I have agency over putting on the exhibition that's a tribute to Stephen, that talks about the need to address the epidemic of suicide in this country. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me and be my friend.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. Through sharing the stories of our guests, I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey.
Need a new van? Why not pop down to Rivervale in Brighton? Explore our range of new and used vans, lovingly prepared and ready to work just as hard as you do. Rivervale, making motoring manageable.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm delighted to welcome the very inspirational Mr. Simon David Eden. How are you, Simon?
I'm really good, particularly good having spent Tuesday evening in your company with Different Hats and that amazing event that just took place, which, I had to run and jump on a train home afterwards. But the whole journey back, I was just replaying moments of the evening and the incredibly inspiring stories from some amazing individuals, and you doing something wonderful that's necessary. So,
Thank you. It means a lot. As I said to you earlier when you come in, just trying to process it the last couple of days. It was, it was a special evening, and again, I keep feeling like each point is like a new starting point for me, and on that, it's all part of the journey. But it's bringing people together and seeing the energy in the room, and actually, what really landed was how much is needed. How many people felt like they needed to be in that room and was able to share openly, and just the magic for me, especially just watching when you stand back and you just watch the conversations happening, and there's something special in that.
Well, as a little taster of what you do, because I know that's what that evening was remarkable because it was so powerful so quickly. I didn't, other than you, I didn't know anybody else in the room, and yet I've already had really kind of very deep conversations with a bunch of those guys, and we've reached out to each other, and we're going to keep in touch. And
amazing.
I hope they'll come to the show. But regardless of that, it was palpable, that energy and that sincerity and that vulnerability in the room. It's just magic. I mean, you're doing something. Yeah, you're doing something really, really remarkable.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. And look, today, I mean, I know we obviously we got put in touch by Stephanie Pryor.
The
Obviously,
wonderful
the one-
Stephanie Pryor,
We'll give
yeah.
her a shout out,
Yeah.
which I'm so grateful that she did. I remember her sending the email through about obviously what you're doing with the exhibition and a bit about yourself and your career, and I was like, wow, yeah, let's go back. And then we're obviously met up, and I'm so inspired by what you've done, and certainly what you're going to be doing with the exhibition, and really excited about obviously exploring that story today. And there's a few things I want to touch on, really. I guess like growing up in Moulsecoomb, being expelled from school at 12, and then I guess just your creative journey, right, and art, film, storytelling, and explore all of that. Of course, we want to talk about the exhibition, Shadow Light Songs My Brother Taught Me, right? I know it explores the themes of sort of brotherhood, masculinity, grief, emotional inheritance between men, and obviously given the mission, I guess, that I'm on with the podcast and obviously all the stuff I'm doing with your art, man. I'm just like key for me today, I guess, is really just to explore a few key elements of that, and like, I guess how creativity can help men express what they struggle to say, I think is a really something I want to touch on. Why so many men still suffer in silence. We've got that room of people there on Tuesday, and there's still people that still struggle to speak up when they're struggling. And I think I want to touch on that. And I guess obviously art and storytelling and how that might help us start better conversations, I guess. One question I wrote down here that not to answer now really, but just to maybe land on over the course of the conversation. Do men often feel things deeply but simply lack the language to express what's going on inside? And can creativity help us find that language? I think that's something just to manifest as we're talking and see what comes out. But as always, I'm going to start with our check-in. Right, we open up with this season of your life, where you are, how you're arriving today. Just Simon, you all right, mate?
Yes, Sam, I'm all right. And I really mean it. And part of that is us having this conversation. Being aware now that these conversations are happening and they're out there, and you're not alone. You're not alone in having concern about where the world is and where men's mental health is, and how that impacts on all of culture, regardless of gender. Race, creed, color, doesn't matter. It's a really vital thing to address in culture now. Yeah,
amazing. Well, look, let's kick off with the big question that we ask everyone, right? As you said, you was there Tuesday. My whole thing is helping the world to see success differently, reframing success, looking at what that looks like. But here we are coming up to 150th episode, and I've asked everyone. So I'm going to ask you, how do you define success? What does it mean to you?
I'd like to answer this because I knew this was coming, so I've thought about this a lot. And I'd like to give you a 3-part answer, if I may.
Amazing.
So it's personal and professional, and then a third definition, which is a kind of umbrella, which embraces both of those and other stuff. So the personal is in my life having reached a place where I'm able to both give and receive unconditional love. It's like a state of grace. That's success. That's personal. Professionally, it's having clung on to my integrity against the odds, working in industries that don't value it. They actually fear it, and they push back against it. So having stayed true to a vision as a writer, as an artist, against all of that kind of suppression and oppression and pushback. It's cost me representation. It's cost me agents. It's cost me jobs. It's cost me a lot of money. And it certainly cost me fame. I had a little taste of that. And that's all cool because I hung on to and retain and still move forward with integrity. You can love what I do. You can hate what I do. That's okay. It's what I need to say. It's what I need to communicate. So that's professional. The overarching thing that encompasses both of those and more is, which is what you're doing, is if you can light a spark of hope or joy or understanding in another human being, that surely is the definition of success. So, yeah.
Wow. That's, I'm keen to explore where now a couple of things there for me. One, especially the integrity side of stuff, and there's often a book I reference, which is The Five Regrets of the Dying by a woman called Bronnie Ware, and she says that the biggest regret of the dying is not living a life true to yourself in alignment with your values, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that's the biggest regret of the dying, and then listen to you talk like that and go, I've lived my life based on these are my values and my integrity, and that is what I'm going to follow. Amazing, eh? That's
Yeah, well, we are in a society and we're in a culture, and as I say, I work across, as you know, many different creative industries, but they don't value it, and I don't know why or how that was allowed to be lost. And I do know other artists who are doing the same as I am and staying true to their vision. I also know a lot of even people I would call friends who cashed in, who they took the other path and got their house in the Hollywood Hills and got their the big checks and stuff. And it's like, but man, you don't get to say what it is you want to say. You get what it is they want to say. That's what you have to do, and then I'm not an artist anymore. And it's a big problem in our culture. I think that it's not valued. Integrity isn't valued.
And I think even just what you said there, what lands with me as well is that, again, so much alignment with what I guess the message I'm trying to come, because how you've described it, so much of that success is inward, right? Like that's where it comes from. So I can feel successful and be successful. I'm going to put what I want to say out there, and it's going to land or it's not. But I've done what I wanted to do, and that's made me. That's that feeling still of success. Whether you go on to get a BAFTA from that or it doesn't ever get made. Do you know what I mean? That's what even our conversation we had the other day, what I found fascinating about your journey was that like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and I wrote some amazing stuff that has never got made, but that is because you wanted to do it, and that's the integrity that comes into it, which is again that's inner success, and that's what I really took from our conversation even the other day. And that's what I hope we tried to get across. We're trying to get across to the kids in schools. I tried to get across, I think, on Tuesday, that success is rather than looking externally, we've got to start to look inward. And I think even all three of your descriptions, right, is aligns with that more inner success, right?
Yeah, 100%. Which I think is why I respond so strongly to what you're doing and what I'm seeing of the work that you're doing in schools. Is that's absolutely right on the money. You couldn't be sharing a more positive and stronger message to try and heal what's broken. Because let's not pretend otherwise. It's broken.
Yeah, absolutely.
The education system and society's desire, drive to just make us consumers who aren't concerned about, what we're buying, literally and metaphorically. And it's not been an easy journey. I wouldn't pretend that it was, and it's not easy to hang on to integrity, and it's not easy to look inside ourselves, particularly for men. We're talking about men's mental health. I think, again, culturally, we're not encouraged to do that. There hasn't been a space to do that really before now, I don't think, at least in my understanding and experience. And it's the only answer, because you're the only one that can truly give you value. If you're looking for validation outside of your own world, your own experience, your own filters, you're always going to be bruised. You're always going to be crushed and disappointed. because it's not out there.
Yeah.
It's not out there. Those baubles, those trophies, those goals, which we're told are the things you need to strive for. They're hollow, man. It's empty stuff. And in the past, I've had people say, "Yeah, you only say that because you weren't at the Oscars or whatever." You go, "No, I can show you. I've had a taste of some of that stuff, and it doesn't make any difference." So yeah, I've kind of been to the top of that little mountain, and yeah, I don't like the view very much.
That's so fascinating, and again, it's so relevant to so many of the conversations I've had on here, and why my curiosity and why I want to explore it so much, because everyone says that, right? We get to the top of the mountain, whether it been Olympic champions, multimillionaires, whatever that is, World Cup winners, that get to the top, and that's not. And it's I'm really conscious, because I'm conscious of the people that are listening, and I think I mentioned it a little bit on Tuesday about other people that can listen to people talk like that. Go, it's okay for you to say that because you have achieved them things, and I'm sitting here listening and going, yeah, but I'm really struggling to pay my bills, or I'm doing this or whatever. Sure. And you go, and you've had that success, you're there, and you've got that, so it's easy for you to then go, but. I don't know. What's your thoughts around that? Like, what did you say to people like that when?
Well, I've been where they are. I have been so broke I didn't have bus fare in my pocket. I've had nothing and nowhere to sleep. I've slept in parks, and I've been there. And the only way out of it is you. It's deciding to change. It's deciding to look for something other. I hesitate even to say better. It's just following a different path, and that's an internal thing. And yeah, if you put your mind to it, you can manifest a different possibility. I believe, and I can only say, in my experience, that's what I did, and I was definitely helped. Going back to an earlier point you made, for me, creativity, music, to begin with, is what set me on a very different path. I'm actually really proud of my roots, having come from Moulsecoomb, and but we might get into that a bit more in a bit. But it was brutal. It was really tough and scary for a scrawny little shy kid like me. It was pretty brutal. But I'm sort of, in some ways, that background is what gave me the stuff to look for different horizons. I don't know. Some of it you're born with, I think. But there's this long way around answering your question. But I think wherever you are in your journey, whatever age you are, and however desperate it seems, you can manifest a change. But actually, only you can manifest a change. It's a bit like addiction. I've been addicted to Class A drugs. I've had struggles with alcohol and depression, and only you can change it. You do need support. You do need somebody you can lean into and ask for help from, and that shouldn't be shameful. Which again is a big part of what you're doing, which is amazing. I wasn't brought up in that culture. It didn't exist for me. But somehow, and ultimately, I have to thank my amazing soulmate and wife of 36 years, Helena. She's an earth angel. She's completely changed my life, and I'm probably here because of her, actually. Yeah, but in answer to your question, you make the change, be the change.
Yeah, and it's so hard, because like when you are struggling, it's hard to sometimes see that. But I think again, I've referenced this so many times on the podcast. I think I think I might have shared the other day that we don't always have a choice about the circumstances or things that maybe happen in life, right? We can't. Like if I was to be diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, I couldn't. I've
Yeah.
not done it. That's happened to me. What I can't control that. So, but what I can control, and what I do have a choice in, is how I react to those things. And I think that's maybe for me, like anyone listening at them, that they're in that space and they're in it. That I do think like it's choose how you show up today. I've had a couple of people on who have been diagnosed with cancer and they're terminal and
Yeah.
tragic, and yet they've sat opposite and you go, I can choose how I show up today.
Yeah.
And that choice is, I do believe that maybe that's the choice we have. Not what happens to us, but we do have a choice how we react to things.
Yeah, that's beautifully put and very wise. And yes, I have one of my closest friends, Patrick, who was in the band with me back in the day. He's battling cancer right now, and is doing it in an amazing way. It's inspiring every time I spend time with him. I'm inspired. He's his approach to it is incredible, and God forbid, but I hope if anything happens to me, I have the courage that he has. It's extraordinary, but you're absolutely right. Some of that stuff is out of our control, and how the choices you make, how you turn up today, how you are in the moment, defines how you are, who you are, how you live, how you are in the world. Yeah.
You mentioned about Moulsecoomb. I do want to go back to the start of your journey and talk about life growing up, and just as we do, I guess I'm keen to. I'd loved the three elements of success that you mentioned, but if I was to go back to Simon at 12 who got expelled, what would that definition have been back then? Or do you remember a time where that, like, would that have been a similar answer that you'd have given early on? Or
No, it's taken a lifetime to reach that understanding, and work on oneself. No, I think the kid I was, as a wee kid in kind of primary school, I was a happy-go-lucky kid, and then when my parents broke up, they were never married, but quite a complicated setup. My dad was an ex docker from Liverpool, came down here to escape the trouble he was in at the time. Met my mum. He had 3 kids from his first marriage. She had 3 kids from her first marriage. They got together and had 3 kids. Wow. And I had to check in with my older brother Jack. He's different generation. He's 86 now, and say, is this my rightest imagination, or at one point did 11 of us live at 91 Hillside, which is like a 3 up, 2 down, Pebble Dash Terrace? And he said, no, yeah, we did. And and all I remember that, and that was it wasn't for very long. That was a brief period, but what I do remember being that tiny little kid is that was kind of fun, because the house was crazy. And you could get lost in the mix, in the mob, and I was kind of cheeky and happy-go-lucky and a latchkey kid, and all the good stuff that came with that. But then the older 3 left home because they were in their 20s anyway. And then when my mum and dad broke up, she left and took her 3 daughters who were in their teens, and I never saw her again. And so I was 7 going on 8. My sister was 5. Brother was 10. Older brother Stephen was 10. And that completely shook my world. Very different now. And this is the mid 60s. And back then, the idea of a single parent family and the single parent being a dad was kind of unthinkable. We were the only family on the whole estate who didn't have 2 parents at home, and there was a lot of piss taking, a lot of grief came my way as a result of that alone. But it completely shook my understanding of how the world worked for a while, because your primary bond is gone. But ironically, and I am working on a graphic novella, would be too grand a term. I'm sort of working on an illustrated graphic short story about that period, beginning with that day that it all blew up, and how that impacted me and my brother and sister, and that will come out sometime this year, actually. But so it completely reshaped my world, and I started to have terrible migraines. I became really internalized. I had been this carefree kid, and I wasn't anymore. And I was pretty scrawny anyway. And I sort of disappeared into myself. But I did find solace and escape in beginning to write stories and poems and drawings and things. So creativity already for me at 8 years old was my escape route, because I could go into my head. I could just disappear into my imagination, and it wasn't the tough reality of the world that we were living in, that was broken and hand to mouth. And my dad was amazing. Given where he came from and what he went through and was rehabilitated by, having done wrong and paid for it, he was on a different path, and he brought us up on the straight and narrow. And he stayed the distance. He brought up 3 kids on his own, and we had to quickly learn. I'd come home from school and make the beans on toast, and for my little sister, and we had to learn to be resourceful and independent really early, because he was working 2 jobs just to keep the roof over our heads and food on the table. And he's my hero. People talk about who the heroes are. My dad is my hero. He barely had an education, but he knew the value of one. He was amazing, and but he changed his life. I met his brother many years later in Tasmania, and he was kind of looking at me askance, and do you know about your dad? Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up, he brought me up. He said, yeah, but do you know about him? He said, when he was in Liverpool, people would cross the street. He was scary. He didn't mess with, Tom Eden. And I was like, I don't know that guy. It's, I don't know who you're talking about. And so that was a really interesting insight for me. But yeah, so Moulsecoomb. Yeah. It was tough. It was tough. Because, as I said, as a sort of then kind of damaged kid suffering with PTSD, really, before we even knew what that term was, in a small way, and it's going to be in the graphic novel. My mum was brutal. Yeah, there was violence. There was psychological and physical violence. And so, ironically, her leaving was probably ultimately the best thing that could have happened to us. But you don't know that when you're 8 years old.
Because people talk about abandonment and things like that. Is that something that probably at that age you don't recognise? But have you unpacked that or looked at that later in life as around?
I'm beginning to now. This is the first time, both with the exhibition and the graphic short story that's coming out, where the Gift of the Gab was a little bit the play, but where I'm really just putting it out there. This is where I'm from. This is who I really am. It's always been, I think it's true for any writer, any artist, there's a big part of you in the work, of course, but this is now addressing for the first time head on. This is the reality. You might see me and you form an opinion about who this guy is and and what he's done, so therefore he's a certain way and a certain thing. Everything you think I am, that's what I'm not. It's that. Yeah. And so those formative years of trying to duck the bullies, and you pick a path home and you turn down the wrong alleyway, and shit, man, you're going to have to go through the beating just to, get through the day and all that. And there were a whole, so life was, I suppose what happened with the breakup is, and even earlier than that, when you're the subject of physical abuse that's kind of out of nowhere. You offer to help mash the spuds and you get whacked, and locked in the cupboard under the stairs for offering to help. So you no longer trust your instincts. It's like, I thought I was in a safe place and I'm not. So as a kid, I think you learn to be hyper aware. So you're constantly in, fight or flight. You never know where the next whack is coming from or where the next knock is coming from. And I think then you take that out into the world. And so that was my experience. There may be people who listen to this and go, "Hey, I was brought up in Moulsecoomb. It was great. What's your problem, man? This is you, not the place." And they might be right. But all I can say is, for me, every time I left the house, it was like, what am I going to run into next? And there was some serious shit went down. Right from, I remember a couple of incidents I'll give you. I remember playing out on my tricycle, which had no brakes, and I must have been, 8, 9 years old, and I'm a little, maybe a bit younger, and I'm out on this tricycle going around out in the street, and these older kids came and they got on me and they pushed me down the hill towards the dual carriageway. I've got no brakes, and I'm just hurtling down. And I've had to the pedals are going so fast. I've had to take my feet off, and I'm just and I can see the cars, vans and buses and stuff. And so eventually, I pulled over and hit the curb, turned the steering wheel, hit the curb, the handlebars, hit the curb and fly into a hedge, and burst into a spider's web. I'm terrified of arachnids. It's like, it's like, what were they thinking? I could easily have been killed. And there was another occasion much later on, and I was 15, street fight where my wonderful brother-in-law Les, who's amazing, and he's another hero. He was my sister's boyfriend, and they've been together 50 years. He said the wrong thing to another kid, and he went home, got a knife, got a mate, came back, and they got into it, and so, and I had even longer hair then, and his mate got hold of me by the hair and pulled me to the road and started kicking me in the face for what seemed like forever, and my face was a pizza, and meanwhile his mate's trying to stab Les and trying to stab me on the floor and and later on, and so by the time I got home, and my face was a pizza, and my dad, being a Scouser, said, "Oh, I didn't like the look of your eyebrows," that kind of thing. He had more of a John Lennon kind of that low, not the Stevie G, but our kid. Took me to hospital, and they were amazed that there wasn't brain damage or fractured skull, or they said, "How can you? I mean, like, what happened? You sustained your head being a football for 5 minutes. It's like, how do you? I don't know." And and I think I've got a little nick somewhere, but there was nothing, Wow. So kind of a miracle, and there were a bunch of those kind of things that happened. So that was childhood.
And then I guess I guess because I always find it fascinating, trying to get an understanding of someone because our formative years are so imperative, right? And I think that listening to that, and then I guess the other side of it, that getting expelled from school, and not, we spoke about not maybe fitting into that education system, but your dad being such an influence there. Like I remember you saying about him bringing you loads of books and stuff, and that sparked that creativity side in you.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. In fact, that's a good thing to raise about the school issue. So having at junior school been quite confident, and then reaching 11, 12. So it is after the breakups happened, and I've sort of come through it. And at that point, I thought, well, okay, I'm done with school. I think I might have shared this story with you the other day. I went to the Argus, and I was 12, and I said, so I'm I've come to, you know, the receptionist there. I said, I've come for a job. You know, I want to start. I've got my pad, got my pencil.
Loved it.
I want to be a reporter. And bless him, I don't know the guy's name, but somebody came down. You know, I waited in reception for a bit, and they came down and gave me a tour of the facilities, and the machinery and the presses and the smell of the ink and the paper. You know, it was amazing. I thought, oh yeah, I'm in. I'm sold. Where do I sign? And then he sat me down and said, well, you know, obviously you need to go to school. You need to finish school first and work hard, do your A levels, and then go on to college. And then I thought, oh, that's not what I had in mind at all. I want to go out there.
I'm ready to start now. Let's go.
Start now. And that just sounded like more school, and I hated school, so why would I, do that?
What was it that you hated so much about school? Was it that, obviously, I guess that bullying side of stuff? Was it just that, or what else was it about?
Well, I think so the move to big school is when some pretty unpleasant stuff happened. And again, my dad was amazing, but we had no money, and so I'd been in junior school in shorts, and I guess it was considered, Patcham Fawcett was the school that I was packed off to, not Moulsecoomb initially, which is a walk from home, but Patcham Fawcett, and which is a bus ride away, and so I turn up on day one, and there's 1,000 boys in all boys school, and I'm the only kid in shorts. Now there may be some people listening who even remember that kid in shorts, and it wasn't pretty. There was a lot of piss taking, as you might imagine, and you're going to wear your skirt next and all that kind of stuff, and in some regards, I think I was resilient enough because of having dealt with the trauma at home that I could take it from the kids, and I could get into a scrap, and I'm not necessarily going to win, but I'm going to push back. What really hurt and eventually drove me to make choices that got me expelled is that the teachers were in on it. The teachers took the piss out of me too, and the physical education, the PE teacher. I also couldn't swim, and we grew up in Brighton. That seems crazy, right? But my dad was terrified of water because as a kid, he'd been turned upside down in a barrel of water to teach him a lesson, because he and some other kids were playing around stables, and he was turned upside down in a barrel of water and left, and it was his mates who eventually pushed the barrel over and got him out, and he almost died. And so I don't know, I inherited his fear of deep water, and I still have it. But so I couldn't swim, and this teacher had me stand alongside the swimming pool in the swimming lessons, and the other kids could take the piss and splash me and get me soaked and stuff. And I think that was the point at which I thought, I'm done with this. I'm not coming back. And so there was a pattern for a while where I would, get up in the morning, have my cornflakes, put my uniform on, get my books and head down to get the bus. And I would just walk to Wild Park and go and play in the park and track animals and track birds and, draw stuff and make camps. And it was amazing. It was for me, it was a better education than I was getting at school. And there was no bullying. The animals and the birds and the trees and the stuff had no problem with me being there. They had no judgment. And that went on for a while, and there were letters to home, of course, which I intercepted and opened and wrote back, forged letters from my dad that he was sick and the migraines that he had when he was a kid and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually it came to a head, and, the truant officer came around. And it was a big reveal for my dad. It didn't go well. He came in and had to take time off work and come in to see the headmaster, and they gave me a choice. They said, you can go to Borstal, or we think, Moulsecoomb is a walk from your house, go there. But if there's any more of this, not attending, you're going to go to Borstal. We're going to, sort something out. And then, I kind of knew what that meant and thought, oh, okay, I'm probably not going to survive that. I'm not a tough kid. I'm not a tough enough kid. Maybe I was, but I didn't think I was. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't physically tough, but I was mentally tough. But so I thought, okay, yeah, no, absolutely. But I said to my dad, the only way I'm going to Moulsecoomb is you get me some long strides. And he was a tailor. He was a self-taught tailor. So he made me some long trousers, and I thought, okay, now I can disappear in the crowd. And that was kind of my approach to going to Moulsecoomb is be there, keep your head down, work hard, but don't stand out. Do everything you possibly can to be invisible. You know. So that was school, and that was
But then I guess, like I say, through that journey, despite not enjoying, I guess there's that element of, like you said, that being in the forest and sketching and writing and reading and you know, just that spark. Then for you, like that creativity spark. That's where that sort of first come into play.
Yeah, and my dad was very much responsible for that, for recognizing that. What we all need is mentors, right? What we all need is someone who just sees something. And he was canny enough, he was wise enough to realize I was drawn to words, and I was drawn to images, and I don't know, because I kept it quite secret. I don't know if he'd seen that I was writing poetry and stuff, because, you know, where I wasn't going to show it to anybody. It was, you know, the beatings were bad enough as it was. But so what he would do is, between shifts, he would go to, in those days, I don't know if it still applies, but people would go into the you know, NHS dentists, doctors, and they'd leave magazines that you could flip through, you know, while you're waiting for your appointment. And he would pop in, and he would take a couple and bring them home for me to have something to read. So one week it was, you know, Popular Mechanics. The next week it was National Geographic or Woman's Own. It didn't matter. If it was words on a page and images, he knew I was going to be completely absorbed with it. And my Jack, who I mentioned earlier, my half brother, kind of once a month he would come in with comics, like Topper and Beano, and you know, the Eagle, and I just devoured those things. And I was going to show you some. This probably won't show on the thing, but yeah. So this is me as a 10-year-old. I start making my own comics. And this is so this has got the origin of Spider-Man, frame by frame, word by word.
Wow.
A copy, because...
And you've done this at 10?
Yeah. Because Stan Lee's Spider-Man completely blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. And he was a kid with troubles. Peter Parker's a kid with troubles, right? So I could completely relate to it. And I had a first edition, which is probably worth £1 million now. But there was this amazing shop on the Lewis Road.
It's incredible.
Called the Comic Exchange, where if you had 2 comics, you could take them in and swap them for another used comic, you know, and that's how you kept, you know, you got to read new things. So at some point, I thought, I've got the original Spider-Man, the Origin of Spider-Man comic. I have to trade it in, otherwise I can't get the next one. So what I'll do is I'll make my own copy of it.
Wow.
And
that is incredible.
Yeah. And
I love that.
What's interesting to you know, I wanted to share it because it taps into, you know, a point you were making earlier, a question you asked earlier about the power of creativity, is that that was inside me. That was encouraged by my dad, and I took it a step further. But there was nobody around me to say, hey kid, there's a career here. You could, you know, there's illustration, there's, you know, there's lettering, there's there's graphics, you know. Nobody saw that potential and said, wait a second, you're naturally inclined and you have a natural ability here. Let's encourage that. Let's do that. And And I think that's what's missing. And I think that's, a big part of what you're encouraging in schools is let's turn education into something where you see the potential in the kid, not just do they fit in the regime that's going to be good for the stats, which is going to be good for the school and good for the funding and good for the government and turn you into worker bees. No.
You're so, and it's, there's two things there for me, really. One, that actually how much potentially school stifles creativity. Right?
Yeah.
The system at the moment, it just stifles, doesn't allow for play or imagination. And like, I look at the twins sometimes, and their imaginations are incredible. Right? They just go and create these whole worlds out of their toys, and they'll watch something and then go and create something, and it's just incredible. Like to see, and you feel like they go into school and they're doing their mock sats this week, and I'm like, what are these for? Like, it's just, and someone who come on recently, like she's a head teacher, she said that the sats are purely to measure the school, not the kids, not the kids' potential. And I think that's it. Like, so it stifles creativity. But the key, I think, for me, from your story and what I'm hearing you say, is that actually, what does it mean if we just see what kids love and what they're great at and what they want to lean into, right? Okay, if maths isn't really your thing, but look how creative you are, and look at this, and we can just get you to lean into the things that you love, you're going to be more inclined to work harder at that and thrive in that area, as opposed to, I think there's a brilliant clip by, I think it was Jimmy Carr was on a podcast I listened to. It was a brilliant clip, and he was not, I studied physics for 4 years. He said, got to the end, and I was a little bit less shit at physics. And I'm like, and he said, what we don't need, this is what school does, what we don't need is people that are just a little bit less shit at something. Wouldn't it be amazing? This is what I thrive on, this is what I love, and we're gonna encourage you to go down that route. And of course, there's some fundamentals and foundational stuff that maybe we've got to touch on so they get an understanding. But not to be tested on them, maybe, just to get a base understanding of some mental arithmetic or whatever we need. But just to go, this is what you love, and we're gonna help you. And even like you mentioned about careers, like looking at some of this amazing stuff that you've done there at 10 years old, to go, wow, this is talent, and just explore all the different avenues you could go in with some form of that type of creativity. And there are options, whatever that looks like, right? Because I know obviously you went on to ended up doing sign writing or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, but like, just know that would be a career or something that you could go and do and use some form of creativity to do something else. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be an artist that draws and I'm going to sell paintings. Like, people would get maybe an idea of that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Again, because those what we're sold, those ideas are too narrow. There's a massive, it's like the film industry or the theatre industry. There's set design, there's costume, there's makeup, there's editing, there's cinematography, there's a million different roles within those industries that are not talked about. It's like you don't necessarily have to be the star who's on the camera or the person who's directing it or writing it. There's a million other amazing roles that you could pursue within those things. And so catching that early, to your point, all those other subjects are important, and to have a grounding in them and to have an overview of those things. Math was never my thing, but I get the need, why it's useful in your life. But to be shunned because you're an outlier, because you're a maverick, to be shunned because your brain works differently. Visual learning for me early on was much stronger, and I struggled with, and as I said before, I was not as intensely painfully shy as my brother, but I was very shy. And so I've actually been looking at an old school report for this graphic short story that I'm doing, and the French teacher, I mean, I love, but for me to stand up and say bonjour, je m'appelle Simon, ça va, then I was absolutely petrified. Every time I stepped through that classroom door, I was petrified. And she would make, and I was, so I was getting D's. I was like 30th out of 30, a class of 30, And every time she'd make me stand up, embarrassed and recite, and I would fumble and stumble and couldn't do it. And consistently throughout school, her reports for home are just brutal. They're really cruel. And you go, do you know what? That wasn't a kid who was bad at French. I loved language. It's what I do. You missed, you didn't observe, you didn't say, you didn't take me aside and say, what's wrong? Why are you struggling with this? And that's what we need to do with education.
Is that part of the, because one of the things I think I alluded to a little bit on Tuesday was the fact of the importance, really. There's a couple of things here really for me. There's the importance of not only going in and changing the system so we can teach more emotional literacy and lean into the things that we're talking about, but it's giving the teachers the skills as well to maybe recognise and identify, as well as the parents, right? And because ultimately I think you mentioned about mentors and role models, but the thing that what struck me about our conversation the other day and what I hear from you today is the influence that your dad had by just recognising that you've got something and allowing you, like encouraging that in you, right? He didn't say, well, you got to go to school and you've got to fit in this system and just do what they're telling you to do, but recognising actually, look, there's something and I'm going to encourage you to follow that path and follow that creativity and actually just having someone to believe in you, right? Like I think that's something that's so important, finding that, whether it be a teacher, whether it be a parent, whatever it is. You like to think your parents generally, and I do, I speak on my behalf, like they can do anything they want. I believe in them 100%, and that's the message I will always drum home. And I same with my parents were similar with me, which was amazing, but drum that home that you can achieve and embrace the things that you love doing, and that's a message. But we need to address that in teachers as well, right?
100%. And I would like to do a shout out to Jim Tiller, who was the art teacher. He was the one really, English teacher to some degree, because those were my two subjects, of course.
Absolutely.
But Jim Tiller was amazing and did recognise, I had something, and he encouraged it. And he encouraged me because I was already doing really quite abstract work that, my classmates would, some of them would take the piss out of. And it's what Picasso said, you could do it, but could you think it? And he saw that there was something there. But, and I don't recall whether Jim ever raised the issue of art college. I think still, even then, I was so done with school, it just felt like more school. And the irony is, it took 10 years before I did end up at art college, and I ended up at one of the best in the world, at the Royal College of Art, but by a different route.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant, it's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing.
There's a couple of things really for me, like a theme that's run through, and just something I want to explore, like at different points through your career and different points, the people that you've met and those that you've mentioned, a couple of sort of mentors or people who saw stuff in you. Do you think, like, I'm thinking really of, like, we're addressing certainly mental health, or you're addressing suicide. And I've referred to a couple of times the Lost Boys report. I think young men these days losing that sort of not there's not enough of those role models or those mentors within life. Do you think that's part of the problem that we've got within society at the moment? Because I'm listening to your story and you've gone through, and like you said, coming from what you have come from and the background and etc. But at each stage and following these different paths that you have done, that there's been those different people that across that, from your dad right up to the professor you just sort of mentioned as well. Do you think that's what's maybe missing for young boys?
Absolutely vital. And I think the beginning of the breakdown of that was the loss of apprenticeships under Thatcher, doing away with those as a vital lifeblood for kids who didn't want to go to college, who didn't want to go to university. That doesn't have to be. It's a bit like, what's the definition of success? It doesn't have to be a degree. There's a million other ways to lead a fulfilling life that you might be more comfortable and suited to. So I think, you're 100% right. That I think that was a big thing, that passing down of skills and wisdom from one generation to another seems to have been eroded. And I can't for the life of me think why you would abandon that. It makes no sense to me. And just as I know that you do and are doing, whenever I've been able to, I've tried to do that. I've tried to give back because, that's what got me. That's what helped me. Every time I was stumbling or, lost or whatever, it was those guys that put me on the right track, that just gave me that little self-belief or, we're missing that. We need more of it. We need more of it.
Okay, and I guess the other thing I wanted is just that we talk obviously about the creativity and your different forms of, like, I'm trying to unpick that. I guess it's such a form of expression, right? And I guess, is there stuff that comes out in your work and that has done over the years that does stem from you finding yourself and like that story from upbringing, and because what you've described is fairly traumatic as a child, and some of the things that you've gone through, and then is the creativity and in your work an expression of your journey and a way of you, I guess, expressing those feelings? Because I guess I'm going around the house, and I will ask probably a question in a minute, but I guess along the lines of that thing of that, men especially, we find it difficult to articulate sometimes, or want to talk about what's going on inside and understanding ourselves a little bit more. And you have, my impression is, obviously you've used your creativity as a way of dealing with that and expressing that.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think, winding back a bit, when I was about to put together the band with Patrick is the time when my brother took his own life. And without that band for me, I don't know how I would have coped with that. Particularly given I didn't know that Stephen was writing. He was my older brother, so he didn't, it's hard to have regrets about something you couldn't change, but I still feel a certain amount of almost guilt that I wasn't the older brother, that maybe a kid brother would have come to me. But because I was the younger brother, and he was, intensely shy, brilliant chess player, really internalized. He could play two, he should have probably turned pro as a chess player. He was that good. He could play multiple games at the same time, but he was incredibly introverted, incredibly withdrawn into himself, and didn't share very much. So when he shared with me a sheet of lyrics called Falling, I should have seen the signs, and I didn't, and it breaks my heart to this day, Yeah. Sorry.
No, mate. Not at all. Take your time.
But yeah, so I didn't know he was a fellow writer, you know, and so what this is both things really. It's what I'm doing now, what I'm leaning into now, and why I want to spread this message, and you know, with your help and encouragement, is amazing. It's a story that needs to be told because I didn't see it coming, and I loved him dearly, but he was trapped in his own world, and I didn't see what happened coming. And the only thing that got me through it was leaning even deeper into creativity and songwriting and putting together the band, and it did send me off the rails for a bit. I mean, the band was great, and that was all kind of keeping me alive. I saw my dad just turn into a shell, you know. He was broken by it. My sister had the amazing Les, my brother-in-law, who's, you know, my hero. He's incredible. And so I think Les got Shah through it. But yeah, for me, it was definitely, I needed to disappear into my imagination, into my work, and that's what carried me through. And that was music. So it was a very powerful way of processing grief and bereavement and anger and loss and all of that stuff.
Did you ever speak about it with your dad? Was it something that, you know?
He never accepted it was a suicide, so we couldn't talk about it.
Really?
I knew it was a suicide, and I've only actually. I always instinctively knew it was a suicide, and it's only in recent years, with talking to my older brother Jack, that he gave me detailed information that meant absolutely 100% that my instincts were correct, and part of that will be reflected in what you see in the exhibition. And yeah, my dad never accepted it. Could never bring himself. It was already too heartbreaking.
Yeah.
He couldn't accept. That was too heavy. You know.
What do you think is like again, so much of the work and so many of the conversations I've had around is trying to unpick and get an understanding of what's the barrier, what stops us so much, like men especially, stops us from opening up, stops us from talking, stops us from asking for help.
I think we've, as a society, I think as a culture, we've shied away from that. We don't encourage that. We've actively suppressed it in men, and look where we are. You know, both with the suicide rates and the impact of that poor mental health on women. And you know, on the queer community, on the trans community, it's we have to address it. You know, it's a long overdue conversation. And yeah, I don't know why as a culture we've shied away from it. Death is a part of life.
Yeah.
You know, we're all heading there.
Yeah. Well, none of us are getting out of this.
None of us getting out alive. What you do with it in the meantime, and how you can empower others, surely has to be the purpose of life. You know, if you live, you know, answering your question at the beginning, that if you can live in unconditional love, you can't pull the trigger, you can't drop the bomb. You know. The whole of society's better. And if we can do that one person at a time, one heart at a time, that's what it takes. And that's really all we can do. You know, with all the craziness that's going on in the world, and ethnic cleansing and genocide and all the madness that's going on, we feel like we have no agency. You know, I've marched, you can march, you can vote, you can, you know, write to your MPs, you can voice your opinions, but it doesn't seem to have made a difference. And that's what's truly heartbreaking. So then for me, it's like, what do I have true agency over? I have agency over this conversation. I have agency over putting on the exhibition that's a tribute to Stephen, that talks about the need to address the epidemic of suicide in this country. So yeah,
Well, it's amazing. I think to take something so tragic as well and use that for a purpose, right? And to put that out there is incredible. And I guess I know it's sort of shadow like songs my brother taught me. What lessons that like if you think back with Stephen and obviously with the lyrics and the stuff and what's come out of that, what are some of those lessons from that he's taught you?
that I think that even in the darkest moments, adversity and standing up to adversity, processing adversity is what makes us who we are. It is a part of the fabric of who we are, and none of us are going to avoid it. We're all going to have traumas and difficulties and challenges in life. And again, we need to equip kids to know that that's okay, and therefore it's okay to ask for help. You're not alone in that journey. So I think for me, that's the big takeaway, that even out of the darkest moments, you can find hope. You can find something that transcends it. And that's what I'm hoping the show does. Everyone will view it in a different way, their own way. They'll process it their own way. But I hope that's what it says. That there are the deep dark shadows, and we've all been in them. We've all been cloaked by them. But there is a light you can follow. There is a light you can reach for. I believe it.
I think that's such a powerful message, and certainly for me, I look back and think exactly that again. Back to kids. If we can equip kids, not shy away from the adversity that they're inevitably going to face at some point in our lives. We will face some form of adversity, whatever that looks like. Well, you could be brought up in an amazing environment and have all the love in the world and all them things, and yet you're still at some point there's going to be something in life that you will face. And there's different levels of adversity, and people will deal with it in different ways, right? But whatever you face, you're going to face some of that. So if we give kids the understanding and the skills and the tools to know that that's going to happen potentially, and how you process that, giving them the skills to a couple of things. One of the things we practiced on Tuesday, active listening, giving them skills to really listen, I think is a key element. But also, again, like you just alluded to, the ability to ask for help, and there's no shame around that. Those two things, if we can combine those, I think that, back to the word that you mentioned is hope, right? If we can and someone mentioned on an episode of a couple of weeks back around just trying to find a glimmer when you're in those darkest moments, when you're in those really darkest moments. Because ultimately, I think a lot of my understanding around this subject and the people I've spoke to is that, especially some of the letters that people have left behind after they've died of suicide, is that ultimately people, they don't want to die. They just want the pain. They're in so much pain. They just want that pain to end. And if we can find ways of giving them little glimmers, and I guess back to what we sort of highlighted at the start, is there a way that, I don't know, is creativity a way of expressing that in some way, a way of, again, back to leaning into that with kids at school? Is that a way of getting them to ask for help, getting them to, that they can express it through creativity? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole strand of art therapy which does precisely that. But that's a bit more specialized. But I think there should be a kind of a general approach to education that does that. And it gets back to what we were talking about before. It's like, for the educators, for the teachers, spotting the clues. What are you seeing in what they're writing? What are you seeing in what they're drawing? What are you seeing in their approach to it? Are there questions? Does that raise questions you want to ask?
and not shying away from, I
Yeah.
guess, from that, because that's the other thing, isn't it? We almost feel like there's taboo subjects, right? Like we're having this conversation now, but like, would we have had this years back? Like just the talk around mental health, the talk around suicide. One of the things that was highlighted, I think, on Tuesday was that the awareness is here now. Right? We've got a huge amount of awareness, and yet by that amount of awareness, potentially things are actually still not changing. So awareness is great, but I think Paul Dukes mentioned it. He said awareness is great, but actually action is what's important, and what actions do we take, or are we taking to make that change? I think is where what we need to look at maybe.
Yeah. Well, and you're doing it. You're doing it in schools. That is action. That is seeing those kids respond to what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Man, that's you're living and breathing it. That is action. And going back to my point is, what do we have agency to do? What can we affect? And you're doing it. And with this conversation around the exhibition, that's what I want to try and do in a tiny way with that, is be a part of that, be a part of a more positive conversation about it. Break down the taboos, break down the barriers. Culture has not allowed us to ask for help. It doesn't encourage it. It says, success is the shiny baubles, and they're not. They're selling you a crock of shit. It's not real. None of those things are real. Light that spark in somebody, and I promise you, see how that makes you feel. Is amazing. A couple of years back, I shared this with you before, but pre-COVID, myself and two wonderful local authors, Nikki Singer and Becky Whitney, the three of us put together a thing called Word on the Street, where we took creative writing workshops, free workshops to the homeless, the rough sleeper community in this town, and addicts in recovery. And, we couldn't sustain it eventually because we were self-funding it and so on, and all had day jobs. But it ran for about 18 months, and you see the penny drop for one person. You see that light in the eyes of one person. That's success. And we got as much from it as they did. I know that's true for the others. I got as much from it as the people we were working with. That is success.
There was a guy that a friend of mine who's been on, Ashley Usiskin, and he's got a podcast himself called The Gift of Help. And exactly how you just articulated it, right? And it's called The Gift of Help because actually if you offer help to someone asks for help, that you can give them the gift of helping them, right? And because the reason it's such a gift, because like you just alluded to, by you helping those people on the street, how great that made you feel.
Yeah.
So you've got the gift, you're the gift of helping someone, and you can see that. And like you said, whether that spark that lights up, that bit of hope that you may be giving them, that lights you up and helps you inside. So it's a gift on both parts, right? On both sides of the coin.
Yeah, 100%. If Helena was here, she would say, yeah, that's because Simon's love language is that it's acts of service. Yeah, that's my love language, and I didn't know that. That's Helena. She's amazing, and studied her psychology and helped me with transactional analysis, which I even use now in rehearsals of plays. But it's that, yeah. It's astounding the power of helping someone, and seeing that change and as you say, how it enriches you is it's unbelievable. That's it's a beautiful thing. It's the air we should all breathe.
I'm keen, if we can, with like again with the exhibition, and I guess how maybe has that allowed you to process what happened with Stephen. I guess it because he was 20 at the time, so you would have been, what were you, about 17?
I was 18.
Yeah. So going back to that time, like, I guess a couple of things really, if you can delve into how you processed it then, and maybe how years later now with the exhibition that you've managed to maybe, or you are processing it now differently.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. Then was shock, denial, anger, all the classic stuff of grief and bereavement, and really feeling, because I saw my dad just disappear, became hollow, having to, or at least feeling like I needed to stand up and keep things moving forward, keep everyone moving forward in some way. And so I didn't process it. I kind of shut it down. I shut it out. And there was no services or no suggestion that we could reach out to anyone for any kind of help or conversations around it. And so, like we did, like you do in Moulsecoomb, if it happens in Moulsecoomb, it stays there and you deal with your problems yourself, and both in the community and the family. And that's what we did in a very broken way. So I didn't really process it, and I think that's what led ultimately to me into some hard partying, destructive, self-destructive lifestyle a few years later, which wasn't healthy. And so it's only really now that I'm beginning to process it and look at it in a completely different light, in trying to find something from it as I process it that offers hope, that out of that terrible tragedy that even 50 years on still breaks my heart, that there can be something of it that leads to something better. Yeah. And it is a process. I don't believe it'll ever end. I don't think there is an end to it. You walk with sorrow, I don't think you can ever leave it behind. You learn to live alongside it. But yeah, I think what I'm aiming for. There's a quote in the front of my novel, The Savage Kingdom, which I'm going to give you for your girls, which I originally thought it was Albert Camus, a quote, but I'm told it wasn't. But so it's unknown. But it's don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me and be my friend.
Wow.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's what we need in politics. That's what we need in communities. That's what we need in family. It's yeah. And I think that's what my hope is for processing this tragedy with my brother. I hope that's what this can lead to in a conversation. That we're there for each other. Yeah.
And do you think that, like you said, it'll be something, I guess, that sorrow you'll learn to walk alongside, but with the processing and the experience of putting the exhibition together, that's helped you, I guess, come up to peace with what happened, or do you think you'll ever get to that point, or is there still stuff there that you'll maybe never?
Yeah. I think, I mean, we barely know one another, but and you've already seen me several times close to just losing it. I don't think that'll ever go away. I think this exhibition is a great step in making something positive out of something desperate. But I think personally for me, I don't think that pain's ever going away. And I just have to deal with that, really, and recognize it for what it is. And yeah, it's yeah, that. But in a way, that's why even more there needs to be something positive from it. Otherwise,
What
it's
is
just
it?
this.
Is it the? I guess the hope for the exhibition is that it genuinely, the power will spark those conversations. Is that
Yeah.
what the
Yeah, and it's you know, those like my brother who took his own life. If you're doing it, of course you're doing it, and you're in a place where that's a last resort. That's a decision you're taking. That's, you know, heartbreaking and shocking. But what this is also doing, and what this conversation is also doing, is showing this is what you leave behind for everybody who loved you. You know, so could you ask for help? You know, maybe not do it in that moment and ask for help, and let's see if we can together find a way to fix things, to you know, to walk alongside you and carry you through it. Sometimes those can be fleeting moments, like, you know, David's story with the
wow.
with the talk club. Just that so kind of that like wow. I really want to meet with him and talk some more, because
Yeah, we've already missed. Like, obviously, I'd reached out to the panel, and your name's already come up in the email chain about well, let's all go to the exhibition as a great way of all reconnecting, and because it's, again, so much alignment with those stories and obviously what you're going to share. So I believe as a crew we're all going to be we're all going to be coming, of course. But
fantastic. But you know, that's a perfect example. He had that card in his pocket, and at that vital moment when he's about to end it all. And he thinks about his wife and making her a widow, and he thinks about his kid, and they're not going to have a father. And then he remembers there's that card, you know. So that's what I want the exhibition to do. Is like, please just have that conversation before you take that step.
Because I guess, and again, a couple of things. My understanding of the more I talk about this subject is that the reasoning sometimes people feel is that they feel that the others around them will be better off. And I hear like the two words, and a lot of suicide letters afterwards, the two words that come out are worthless and useless, that people feel so worthless. And I guess it's just them. It's, again, hence the whole You Right Mate campaign. Is not just to go, are you all right, mate, and check in. That it is those different elements of going, like, sometimes it's just going to someone, I love you, or I'm proud of you, or and it maybe it's that gives them, because sometimes you ask if someone's all right and they haven't got the skills or tools or ability at that time to go, no, I'm not, I'm struggling, I will need to ask for help. I can't do that. I feel worthless and useless, and I'm in this position. I don't know how to even ask for help. I have so much shame, people are better off about me. But maybe it is just that thing, and maybe even from your experience, it's just that little glimmer, that little thing to go, you're loved. There's wherever you are, whatever's going on, you are loved.
Yeah.
And you are enough just as you are right now. And if that, because when we've done I've done the assist suicide prevention training, and one of the things that I found really fascinating was actually that people on that journey actually trying to fix and solve things. That's not necessarily always the answer, but what can we do today, even if it's just to keep you safe for the next hour?
Yeah.
If you're thinking about this, I can keep you safe for the next hour, for the next day. If you just kept them safe for that next hour, is that enough for them to have a little shift? Because then the next day, maybe they wake up the next day and we can get through the next day. And then maybe that's the shift, and enough to maybe make that change. And
yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I know from firsthand experience, being in the depths of deep depression, that it feels like there's no way out of that. And yet here I am. You know, so you learn, if you're lucky, I guess, that however dark and deep that hole seems to be, things can change. And so you're absolutely right. Just to hold someone that space for an hour, for a day, whatever it takes, can make all the difference in the world. You know, you're not who you are. You know, it's another truism about, you know, yesterday I was working in my studio at home on work for the show, and when I go back to it tomorrow, I'm not the same person I was working on it. We've had this conversation. Other things have come into to play. You know, you have other things that you're filtering that then play into how you express yourself. And so, yeah, those moments, I do think if you can catch those moments and make a different choice, that's hugely empowering and positive. And yeah, that's a great mission.
Okay, if as well, if you you mentioned about obviously you know, we've talked about your brother, but also you know the path you went on and getting to a dark place and being you know, suffering from depression. Like what can you remember or to pinpoint what got you out of that? I know you've mentioned how influential Helena was in that thing, but what? Just, I guess, just for people listening, that if people are listening and are struggling at the moment, what helped you get out of that, and what could you say to those people, maybe?
I think, you know, I think I am incredibly lucky to have had Helena in my life and her influence. And I think she's largely responsible, even if at times over the years I haven't necessarily been ready to listen to advice or see a perspective she's given me. Invariably she's right. And so I think somewhere instinctively, internally, I now know that to be true. Yeah, it's difficult to really pin down. I'm trying to think of any, you know, particular situation. It is much more about it taps into what you just said. It's knowing that there's somebody who loves you unconditionally, warts and all, flaws and all, you know, that somewhere deep down in your consciousness, you know, there is a different path because they've shown it to you. And your demons that are there, you don't have to listen to them. They're there. And there's this wonderful there's a theoretical physicist called Fred Alan Wolf who talks about in a book called Mind into Matter, and he talks about, you know, when we enter the consciousness, which we do as artists in our imagination, you know, we become time. And there's another thing around that in Hermann Hesse's novel Siddhartha. He talks about consciousness being a river. So that the river, our existence, is the same at the high point and the source in the mountains as it is at the estuary where it meets the sea and everywhere in between. So our past and our memories and our present and tomorrow are all one thing. And trying to hang on to that and remember that there is, you know, there's a way forward. You're in that river, and you know you can swim out of the deep end into the shallows. You can do it. It is within us to do it. But it's it's listening to the right voices and not those demons. Man, they creep up on you.
It's hard, isn't it? Because we all have them like that. I know for me, like even recently, like that internal narrative, that internal voice, that internal critic that you know, despite knowing, you know, you're doing things that you're passionate about, that light you up, that you go through self-doubt and inner critic. And there's one thing I keep trying to remind myself of, and I often, the podcast becomes very much like my own therapy and me trying to, help others, hopefully with a conversation, but actually helping me as much as anyone else, I think. But there's one I know I shared the other day about how much I love stuff by Charlie Maxey.
Yeah.
And his message, and one of his quotes in the new book is that we all have critics. Don't be one of them.
Yeah.
And he's trying to quieten that critic and let the other, but listen to the other voices around you that are helping you believe in yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, because that critic is, about the wrong goals and the wrong, they're kind of like reminding you of, no, you're meant to be focused on this other stuff that society wants you to be focused on, or whatever. And I think, ironically, probably my darkest moments is where I've doubted my mission to hang on to my integrity, where I've thought, if you just did this other thing, and the pushback you're getting, and the reason you're not able to get this project funded or away or whatever is because you're hanging on so tightly to the integrity. Maybe you should let go, and then that spirals down into, well, then I don't understand who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Should I make that compromise? And which is not the same thing at all as saying, certainly in film and television and so on, that's a collaborative medium. And if you are lucky enough to fill the room with smart people, you should listen to them. And that's certainly what I do. So I'm not saying that, but it's fundamentally that thing of hanging on to your integrity can be a brutal struggle, particularly in an industry where, if as an artist and as someone who's sensitive, I've chosen the most emotionally brutal industry to work in, probably. And but then it's a choice. I choose to do it. I choose to do it because I love it, and I will never stop doing it. I will never retire. What would I do?
I've often said that. I think that's again back to the thing we've talked about at the start, right the way through, that doing things that light you up, following that path, following the things that bring you joy, and expressing your imagination, and all of them things that you can keep encouraging. I said, I remember me and Kelly, like, even since we've separated and beforehand, like we talked to her, and she was all, because she's followed a path that's very structured. Going to want to go to university, going to become a solicitor, then going to become a judge, and she's done all of them things. She's amazing. It's very inspiring, and it's great. And got a house and mortgage, and then want to get a pension and all of these things. And we always battled over, our friends are going to pay their mortgages off in a few years, and we're not going to be able to do that, and we haven't got a pension in place. And I'm like, we're all going to retire. Why am I going to retire? From doing what, like doing the thing I love doing. I don't want to. And although she's followed a path that she enjoys and she's done really well, thinking about that retirement, I'm like, I don't want to retire. And that's where we want to be almost, I think, as a society, because it doesn't then feel like work. And I try not to, whenever I say to the kids that I try not to say I'm going to work. I tell them what I'm doing. I'm going to have a great conversation with a friend of mine on a podcast today, and we're going to talk about some amazing things. And I'm going to host an event tonight, or I'm going to do it. And they see the enjoyment. So it's not I'm going to work to earn money to create a life that I want to have. It's actually creating a life that you're part of every day. And I think I know I shared with what I found fascinating talking to you the other day, and even again like what we've sort of highlighted today, and through the amazing things that you've done throughout your whole career, and following your instinct, going in that path, and then with film and TV and theatre and all, and writing and art and all of the that expression that you've done. I remember sharing the thing about the ghosts of your future potential. This is what I love to get across to people, because we get on our deathbed and you're surrounded by the ghost of your future potential. It's all there going, we was ready to do this opportunity with you. We was ready to jump, and and we didn't. You turned that down. You didn't follow that path, and now we're just going to come to the grave with you. And then I asked the question, the reflection is that how many ghosts are going to be around your bed when your time comes, and I listen to your journey, and don't think there's going to be too many around there, mate.
Well, no, and I think those that are kind of rattling their big bags of money and stuff. You go, yeah, I didn't want it, and I don't have it, and that's cool. Go away. I did what I needed to do, but yeah, and really, my shout out to kids out there, or parents of kids out there, showing some interest in the arts in any way is. And I shared this with you the other day. The careers teacher, when the careers teacher came to school when I was 15 or whatever, and asked me what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, and I said a writer. They couldn't suppress the laugh out loud. Laughed in my face. And here I am. I'm a published playwright, I'm a published author, I'm a screenwriter, and so on. So I would say to those parents and to those kids, you can do it. Don't listen to those voices, because you can manifest. In that regard, you can manifest your own destiny if you believe in it enough and you work hard enough. You can follow that dream, follow your dream, and your dreams will follow. Is what I would say. And yeah, again, it's we need to influence the educators. We need to influence. They should encourage that. They should encourage kids to dream big, and it's a different kind of dream. And what's also interesting about that, I think, and I've only been reflecting on this, knowing we might talk about this kind of stuff, is I didn't need his permission to be a writer. I was already a writer. I was a writer at 8 years old. What I was asking for is guidance about how I might best hone and refine my craft, and what path should I take for that. And he wasn't equipped to do that. He said, you're good at art, painting and decorating is the right thing for you. Next. And there's nothing wrong with painting and decorating. I've done a lot of it in my time. It paid the bills many a day. But I was already a writer. And, it comes back to us talking about mentorship. The right answer to that question, or that ambition was, well, let me look into that. Let me see if there's someone you could talk to. Let me see if could I make a call? Could I make an introduction? Is there a course you could go on? Is there a part-time course you could do while you're, whatever.
Yeah.
Do something positive. Give something positive back. Don't shut down dreams.
Because it's back to that question that we looked at around, like, what is the purpose of education, right? And that's what, when teachers and career officers are in that environment, if the purpose of an education system and what kids are trying to encourage is that to follow dreams and follow passions and do what lights them up and go along that path. If that's the purpose, that we're creating environments, safe environments for them to flourish in them, as opposed to what it is now, which is, stifles creativity and imagination. And, you're going to stop playing because we're going to go and you've got to do this because that's going to get you to here and get, I'm just like, that message has got to, because I guess, again, back to your learnings, your career, and the path you've gone on. If we was to, I've asked the last couple of people really, like, what, and I think I mentioned it on Tuesday, like, what, you're Prime Minister tomorrow, what do you change within education, or what do you where do you start with making a difference? What would you change?
Exactly that we need to recognize that creative thinking and creative thinkers, regardless of what their speciality is going to be later on and what career they're going to go into later on, creative thinking is key to everything, and we don't value it. Now, and I would put a shout out to all the amazing teachers who are out there who do value it. I mean, my daughter and her husband are both teachers, and what my daughter does is child-centered Montessori work.
Amazing,
and
I know Montessori.
They've just had to flee UAE because they live out there, they teach there. But so there's a lot of trauma around that, and for the kids they teach. But so yeah, it would be unfair to generalize and say none of the education system and none of the people working in it works. That's not true. But the emphasis is wrong. We need to recognize as a culture, as a society, as an education system, that creativity is absolutely fundamentally key. Einstein said it. Creativity is intelligence having fun. Well, it's like, what? So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you instill that in children? It's there's so many skills to be taken from it. It doesn't mean every kid's going to be an artist or a writer. That doesn't matter. It's not about the output. It's about the journey and the experience of processing some of what it is to be them as individuals that you can put on a page or put on film or play an instrument. And it was a study recently that a child that learns, even for a term, learns an instrument is better at maths. It fires different
of course
synapses. It's kind of, a lot of it's just common sense. But we look the other way as a society because it's not instantly seen as profitable, or the arts in this country, if you look at the history of the way funding has been cut and stuff, it's not considered important. I mean, it's a massive earner actually for the country, but regardless of that, even if it wasn't, it defines what the culture is. Without art, without music, without art forms of all kinds, where's your culture? Without literature, I don't understand it.
I'm with you, and I think touching on what you said, I completely agree. And I always caveat a lot of the stuff I say around education. I think the teachers are superheroes. I really do. I think they're incredible. It's the system. I sit opposite. I know the teachers in the school that are teaching marketing now, and I think they're amazing. Like, I've got I've spoke to them openly about some of this type of stuff, and they're like SATs. They don't even want to do the SATs, but it's not it's the measuring the score, not the kids anyway. But it's something they're forced to do as part of that system. It's the system that's broken. I do believe there's amazing teachers out there that genuinely want to go down a different route, but the system doesn't allow, and that's where the system as a whole needs to change, and we need to address it. But so I'm in agreement with you there, because I am conscious that it seems like what comes across from me sometimes is that I'm bad mouthing it as a and the people within the system. I'm certainly not necessarily not something I want to I think be clear on. But I think there's like you said, there's so much in that creative thinking. Keep pushing down that route, and there'd be stuff coming out. But listen, it's been such an amazing conversation. I knew it would, as we did the other day. But and so before I guess we do our closing tradition on the podcast with our storytelling cards. I think I'm so excited about the exhibition. I think like I said, when I first got the introduction through from Stephanie, I was like, I couldn't wait to speak to you, and I'm so glad we've got this opportunity. And I think there's something that I'm really keen with the exhibition art, and you've mentioned about the hope that it will hopefully give people, which I think there was something that I guess what I'm excited to see it. There was something. There's a guy called Ben West who's recently done his brother died of suicide, and he's done created this website. It's called Reasons to Stay, and there's people uploading letters. It's gone viral. It's really been an amazing thing. And there's something that, for me, like there's elements of what I believe that may come out of the exhibition that you've done is that, right, just giving taking the tragedy that you have with your brother and creating something that maybe just gives that bit of hope.
I truly hope so. In fact, I've just reached out. We're going to meet Rose at Start the Conversation.
Yeah, amazing woman.
Okay, yeah. So I haven't met her yet, but I think we're going to try and align and do something around it. Hopefully, it's sort of a mutually beneficial thing. Obviously, reached out to grassroots suicide prevention as well. So yeah, just.
Amazing,
let's have the conversation.
Incredible. Yeah, Rose is she done the assist training that I went on.
Oh, really?
She runs actually. So yes, it's an incredible woman. The training is incredible. So yeah, brilliant. I love that you've got in touch with her. But it's just been amazing. Well, look, this is our closing tradition on the podcast.
I didn't know about this.
We've got our storytelling card, so I'm definitely going to get you. I use these at our top table events.
Wow.
So they're based around the 5 pillars, and so just choose a card, any card, and then pass it back to me, and I'll read it out to you.
Okay.
Where are we? What legacy do you hope to leave that has nothing to do with your career?
My daughter and her babies, that they live beautiful, productive, constructive, happy lives.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm truly grateful, and I've for your time, and actually, grateful to Stephanie for putting us in touch. And like I say, start of not only some stuff hopefully we're going to collaborate on, but as a friendship more than anything, I believe. So I'm truly grateful for that. So and I cannot wait for the exhibition, and obviously I'll share all the links in the show notes to the exhibition and stuff. And I encourage everyone who's listening to come along, because I know it's going to be incredible. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Mate, amazing. And that, as they say, is a wrap.